Very good evening to you. I'm Neil Harvey. You are watching Prime Time Russia, where we round up the day's news and events from around the Russian capital.
Yeah, hello, I'm Anya Ferdjeva. It's good to be with you. Let's start the programme by looking at what stories shaped the day. President Medvedev signed a law introducing a three-colour system for alerting the public of terrorist threats.
Justice for the man who blew Anna Chapman's cover, along with 10 other Russian agents in the US during last year's transatlantic spy saga.
A developer goes against orders by the city and tears down a historic building right in the middle of Moscow.
And an arms watchdog says Russia has jumped to 7th place among the world's biggest spenders on weaponry.
While Russia's position has jumped up over the years, its defence expenditure is still dwarfed by China's and the US's.
Prime Time's Natalia Novikova is armed with more details as she joins us now live. Natalia, Russia, if I'm not mistaken, annually spends something around $40 billion on the needs of the military. Is this even proportionate to the country's size?
Well, according to the Russian experts, it's not anywhere near being enough for Russia. Now, if you take a look at the wider picture, between 2002 and 2009, Russia has moved from being 11th when it comes to spending on the country's military to being the 7th. Then China used to be the 7th and now is the second country that spends the most on its military. And China only spends about 15 to 20% more than Russia. But who is the number one spender? Of course, it's the United States. But if you take a look at how much the United States actually spends on its military needs, you're going to be very much surprised, because the US spends 15 times more than Russia does. And having said that, the US is not the biggest country in the world, and it doesn't look like even that amount of money has been enough for the country to win its war, to win all the wars that it's gotten itself into. The latest example, of course, is the hunting down of Osama bin Laden, which took the United States 10 years, and only they know how much money. So, of course, because fighting terrorism in Russia is crucial to the country's security, the experts are saying that the military expenses will only further grow.
If you talk about the amount of spendings, you see the six-fold increase in the last 10 years. We have to understand that Russia is a very specific country with very hostile environmental conditions, and it's pretty hard to compare how much you spend and what you get, because most of the money still get into maintaining this very expensive military infrastructure.
Well, of course, a lot of Russia's military hardware and small arms are a heritage from the Soviet Union, and that is also something that needs to be modernized and changed, so a lot of money will also be spent on that.
Natalia, this $40 billion or so, what is it mainly being spent on?
Well, primarily, of course, as I said, right now they're going to be spent on modernizing the country's military equipment. And once that's done, the country is going to need a professional army of contractors who will know how to operate that new military hardware, while the country's authorities will be concentrating on maintaining the old army before it gets replaced with a stronger one, with a more up-to-date one. But talking about modernization and big deals, we should always remember the deal between Russia and France that is yet to be signed on Mistral helicopter carriers. Now, one such helicopter carrier costs about 800 million US dollars, and that is the biggest transaction between Russia and a NATO country in history, which NATO was very much a lot of NATO members were very much against in the first place. But if the deal is sealed, Russia is going to buy one such helicopter carrier and build another 3 on its territory. So, of course, that we're speaking a lot of money there as well. On a bigger scale, if the reigning issue between Russia and NATO is the anti-missile defense shield in Europe, and if Russia gets itself involved in that project as well, we're going to be talking even more money spent on the country's military needs.
Costly projects, though. Russia is now 7th biggest spender on weapons, and we're talking to our correspondent Natalia Novikova. Thank you so much for that.
In other news, the opposition in Georgia is bracing itself for another battle against President Mikhail